You know what probably my favorite part of this episode is? Obi-Wan. Not understanding the significance of the droid. It's just an R2 unit. You can get another one. They're a dime a dozen. And he doesn't care at all about any of this until Anakin mentions that he hasn't been memory wiping R2. This is one of the earlier examples of droid effect in actual official canon, something I've talked about several times before. And I like the idea that the only reason Obi-Wan gives a damn is because there's military secrets on the droid. Now, that does make sense. This is something I've kind of referenced earlier. At least I think I have. I've been thinking about it earlier. The idea that the battle droids probably are memory wiped constantly, because in addition to the fact that they need to make sure that these droids are as obedient as possible, they also need to make sure that these droids don't retain any of their military secrets. It is relatively easy to repair a droid, or a droid's memory core, for example, and extrapolate information from it, and they leave behind a lot of droids on the battlefields. That makes sense. It's still kind of horrible, because remember that droids have the capacity to be fully sentient, sapient beings. At least some droids do. I'm not sure if all droids do. That's a bit of a gray area. So we've got droids that are basically people being constantly memory wiped, being tossed into a fight with clones. I always thought that was one of the more darker and less analyzed aspects of the show. Anyways, Anakin's fervent desire to get R2 back, that's kind of awesome. And in fact, as weird as this may sound, I kind of like... He's a little too whiny. That's probably my big complaint on this episode. But I like this because it is very in character. Not the whininess, but I like his fixation on R2 because that's very in character for Anakin. You know, the Jedi Order teaches detachment, which is something I disagree with, obviously. However, that kind of drivel is the kind of thing that Anakin has been pushing against for basically his entire career. And Anakin is the kind of person who would very much care about the individual, especially an individual that has proven to be relevant to him, someone he's grown attached to. There's this bit where Ahsoka says, "Hey, take R5 or R8 or what, you know, the Goldie with you. Maybe you'll start to bond with him." And I thought that was a clever little bit because it shows that Ahsoka understands that predilection towards attachment that Anakin has. And, you know, maybe you could grow attached to this one. He probably could if it wasn't obviously the traitor, but I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk about that. Anyways, I don't think I have much else to add. I do want to mention that I feel like we've gotten over a little bit of a hurdle, and that some of the storytelling has at least moved beyond the early days of lackluster? Threadbare? Non-existent? I'm not sure what to call it. Oh yeah, I also want to mention one last thing that I really liked. I loved the trap of the armored craft on the asteroids. That's actually quietly brilliant. It would take a lot of setup and prep work, but once you have it in place, I mean, think about that. That's really cool, and I like that. That's all I got tonight, guys. I'll see you around.